Taped from New Jersey, it's the SNL Nerds, a show where two comics from New Jersey nerd out about Saturday Night Live. I'm your co-host, John Trumbull.
And I'm your co-host, Darren Patterson.
Hello, Darren Patterson. How are you this fine day?
I'm doing fine, sir. I'm doing well. How are you doing after your big birthday blowout bash-a-roo-me? Are you working off that hangover, or did you return those cop cars you stole? Did you get wild? Did you get crazy? Did you get nuts? Are you allowed back in some states? Or what happened there? What happened? Tell me about the madness that was your birthday party.
I mean, for legal reasons, I can't go into a great deal of detail about it. I signed a non-disclosure agreement for good reason. The major charges have been dropped.
Nice.
The rest is nothing that can't be taken care of with a little community service.
That's right. The law can't hold you.
That's right.
That's right. My man. Here.
I'm 52. I don't have those sort of birthdays anymore.
Oh, you don't?
Actually, I didn't have those sort of birthdays in my 20s. I mean, I had maybe, if I had half a dozen birthdays where I got like really sloppy drunk, I would be shocked.
Oh, you weren't the type that just like commandeered a vehicle and just shot off firearms in the air and went to a brothel?
That's the guys in the Hangover movies.
Doing cocaine in Tijuana? None of that?
No. Never even been to Tijuana. Never done cocaine.
Wow. Not even.
I've had a few birthdays where I got very inebriated, but
yeah,
I don't do that sort of thing anymore. Do you?
No, I don't.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to live vicariously through you, and yeah. No,
set your sights higher, my friend. If you or anyone chooses to live vicariously through me, I just feel bad for you.
John Trumbull, he lives life like a hurricane. I'll live through him.
I don't want to live my life. Why do you want to?
Oh, God. Ooh.
I would trade lives with most anyone listening to this in a fucking heartbeat.
Yeah. Ooh, that's a good question. Who would you want to trade lives with?
That is an interesting question, and I don't have a good answer off the cuff. Do you? Do you know?
For one day.
For a day. Okay, that's easier.
For one day, not for the rest of your life.
For one day. Should it be like a celebrity, like a famous person?
Sure. That'd be whoever you want it to be. This is the only limits are your imagination, man.
I don't know. This is a question that requires some good thought. I don't know. Yeah, it'd be fun to I guess trade places with a movie star, like somebody on the level of like a Ryan Reynolds or Hugh Jackman, just to see what a day in their life is like. And those are just the first names that came to mind because they've been in the news a lot lately. What with the big popular Deadpool Wolverine movie?
Yeah, no, they were like everywhere promoting that thing. Like literally every show, every YouTube show, every form of media they were on promoting that.
Yeah,
show.
I haven't watched the movie yet, but I know they've done hot ones. They've done like a friendship quiz. They did that thing for, I think it's Vanity Fair, where they're hooked up to the lie detector.
Yeah.
They're hitting all the trendy internet shows, and it's fun because they do seem to have a genuine chemistry together, and they do seem to genuinely enjoy each other's company. So it's just funny when you see like a bunch of those on your YouTube recommendations, and you're just like, oh well, they're wearing the same shirts in all these, so they must have recorded all these on the same day. Or alternatively, it's like, oh, they picked out, oh, these are my shirts for this press tour, and we will wear these. And I don't know how press tours work.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a whole thing behind them, but
I don't know. So is there somebody you would trade places with for a day if you could?
I mean, you say Ryan Reynolds, that does seem like a pretty sweet gig.
Yeah. I mean, it might be interesting to switch places with a woman just to see how the other half lives,
Ooh, yeah.
And I'm not talking in like a pervy way, just like kind of as a, like, oh, this is how it works way,
Yeah, so, like that Steve Martin, Lily Tomlin movie.
The
The-
All of Me? Yeah.
yes, yes, exactly. So you know how the other halves live. So you have empathy for the other gender running up
This
that hill.
this is what I'm saying. Yes. Yeah.
Yes,
I need more of the empathy.
exactly. Make a deal with God, running up that hill, if you will.
Yes.
Which is
With
what that song is about, if I'm not
the
mistaken.
Kate Bush. Is it really?
Yeah, like I mean, she talked about it. Like she wanted to call the song "A Deal with God," but then I guess people got pushed back about that. Like
It's kind of a
basically,
provocative title for the time. Yeah.
yeah, like basically the song is about how like men and women really don't understand each other, and maybe the one way that they would understand and each other and have empathy for one another and get along better if they like were able to switch places so they could be in the other person's shoe and then they'd have a better understanding of each other and then we would have a better understanding as a species as a whole and
Wow.
that's basically what the song's about.
I didn't know that. I had no idea. But yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
A Deal with God. That's kind of a provocative title for
it is.
that
Yeah,
time. That because that song came out in what, like the early '80s.
yeah, yeah, something like
Yeah.
that. But
I remember like Nick Lowe, he had an album that, and this was like around 1979, I think. In the UK, it was called Jesus of Cool,
oh wow.
and when it was released here in the US, they changed the title to Pure Pop for Now People, I think. It's since been re-released under its original title, Jesus of Cool, which is
Mm.
much better, much more memorable title. But
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I
yeah,
think
and great album, folks.
yeah,
Check out Nick Lowe, Jesus of Cool, great
yeah,
stuff.
absolutely. Yeah, I think like like saying Jesus in song titles is okay. I mean, it's just I think it's always been okay. Like what Personal Jesus didn't Depeche Mode come out with that, and then Kanye
Yeah.
came out with Jesus Walks, and
Uh huh.
Green Day had Jesus of Suburbia. Like I think that's
Yeah,
a
it's
good
not as
one.
big of a deal now. I
Yeah,
think back then it would have been a bigger deal, but there are always people who are going to be offended by most anything.
yeah, that's
But
true.
anyway, there was some big news in SNL this week.
Yes,
We found
breaking.
out a couple cast members are leaving.
Ooh, did we ever? How did you find out about? I could tell you the story about how I found out about
Shoot,
one
go
of them.
ahead, go ahead.
Yeah. Right, so basically, this is a story as
Yeah.
I remember it. So
By the way, we're talking about Punky Johnson and Molly Carney both announced that they are leaving the show.
yes, absolutely. So on this past Wednesday, Punky Johnson had a show in Brooklyn
Hmm.
with some other SNL cast members and writers on the show as well. Like
Right.
she was headlining it, and I believe Longfellow and Devin and I want to say I think Molly was there as well.
Hmm.
And so on the show in Brooklyn at Union Hall, which is like this really intimate little club where a lot of if you're a comedy hipster nerd, you know about Union Hall. So basically, on the show, Punky was on stage and said, "Hey, just to let you guys know, I'm going to be leaving SNL. There's no ill will. I'm totally fine with this
Hmm.
decision, and it's totally cool. It's not a bit. I'm not joking. I'm going to leave the
Right.
show. And
Yeah,
if
this was like a Q&A after the show, from what I understand.
yes, yes. And
Yeah.
then she said like, yeah, if anybody here wants to like tweet that out or put it out on social media, that's totally fine. I want to get out there. So then somebody at the show put it out there on the Twitter because we refuse to call it X and said,
Hmm.
hey, Punky just said she's leaving SNL. It's and it's not a bit and it's totally. And I saw this on Wednesday night, and when I saw it, I was like, I don't know this. I didn't see any. I didn't see it being reported anywhere else. I was like, oh, that's interesting. I'll keep my
I
eye
saw
on
I
that.
saw a couple stories about it. I think I saw people talking about it on Twitter.
Yeah, like I
Um,
saw it being shared. I saw that tweet
yeah.
being shared, definitely for sure. And then on Thursday, I saw that our good friend John Schneider of the Saturday Night Network,
Yeah.
he put out that Punky Johnson was leaving. So when I saw that, I was like, all right, John wouldn't put out just unverified gossip about that. So like this must
No.
be legit.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so
No, John, that's one of the things I like about John is he gets his facts straight.
yeah, like so I texted him and he was like, "Oh, is this real?" And he was like, "Yeah, I talked to Punky personally." She said, "Yeah, she's leaving." So it's like,
And
"Oh,
then like the next day, I think the story about Molly broke on Friday, if I
yes,
remember correctly.
yeah,
And Molly posted an Instagram post, and they said, "Y'all, that's a wrap on my time on SNL. Reflecting on the amazing 2 seasons I got on the show, it was such a great dream come true. So incredibly grateful for this period in my life. So much love to all my big-hearted buddies behind the scenes who make the magic happen every week. So many bald caps, so little time. It was a
Mm.
true honor to work with such a talented group of writers. And don't even get me started on the cast." It
Oh,
was all in caps. Special shout out to my day one crew, Marcelo Hernandez, Devin Walker, Michael Longfellow, Head Up and Heart Out, Harold Forever. And those, her day one crew are, of course, the folks who started on the show at the same time they did. And
right.
Head Up and Harold Forever, that's, of course, the long form improv great Harold. I'm assuming.
Yeah,
I'm assuming Molly has training in improv, and that
right.
is what they meant.
I'm sure she's not talking about a guy named Harold. I'm hoping.
I mean, Harold Ramis is wonderful, so
That's true.
maybe that's a tribute.
All right, Pizza the
We
Goat.
still got to remember to say they though, Darren.
Damn it! Oh, you
Yeah,
know, I put up a post-it on my computer saying I'm not even joking. I have a post-it right now that says they
yeah,
them to remind me to say they
yeah,
them, and I'm working hard here.
yeah.
I'm
No,
trying to be better.
it's tough. You sometimes just instinctively go back to the she her pronouns, and I've screwed it up on two. But yeah,
All right,
I'm trying to watch myself, which is why I lean on you about it.
right.
So
So thoughts. Let's start with Punky Johnson leaving first. What's your take on that?
well, I mean, I had the same basic thoughts on both of them leaving. I'm sorry to hear it. I liked them both on the show. I think both of them were sort of underserved on the show.
Mm,
I think it's a shame that they're not sticking around for the 50th season
yeah,
because there'll be a lot of eyes in the show, especially with it being an election year. So I'm
yeah.
assuming they weren't leaving by choice.
I don't know. They didn't
I,
say if they
I don't
left
know.
by.
It's vague there, right?
It is vague there. I don't know if they were let go or left by choice, but it does suck that they don't kind of get to stick around. And I agree with you
Yeah.
too. Like both of them never really got the chance. There were moments there where they got chances to shine, but then
Yeah.
like that momentum never really carried to bigger and better things. Like there were.
Yeah, and also like with Molly, Molly has been on the show for 2 seasons, and that's usually when after 2 seasons you get bumped up from repertoire to featured player.
Right.
So it, it's tough for me to imagine that someone would choose to leave when that's about to happen because you get a bump of pay and yada yada yada.
Yeah. No, that's
Um,
true. Like, but I mean, with Molly, I thought they had some really strong moments. Like,
mhm.
of course, I mean, the strongest one was the new cast advice sketch,
Yeah,
where
that was great.
I really like them in that role, and the Please Don't Destroy sketch, the election night. They like we
That
got
was
this,
wonderful. That was
yeah,
great.
like
Yeah.
like those were two sketches where they really got to show what they could do, and they really resonated with people. Like, oh, Molly's great, and I thought that pop would be enough to carry them off, but the momentum always just kind of died out, and it never really
Yeah.
and it never really went anywhere. And then they were on the that weekend update death segment with the anti-LGBTQ bills that were being passed,
hmm
and I mean that was another big moment for them. But again, it just it was like big moment, and then a lot of
it dissipates. Yeah.
yeah, and there was
And it was a similar story with Punky. Is Punky had been on the show for 4 years and never quite got that breakout moment. I mean, did a lot of solid stuff, and also the thing that kind of bugs me is that they were both, like Punky Johnson was first out black queer woman on the show's cast.
yeah,
There were other LGBTQ cast members like Kate McKinnon, Bowen Yang, and back in the 80s, we had Denitra Vance, who wasn't publicly out when she was on the show.
right. Or Denny Dillon, who wasn't out either. But
Oh,
she's
I
out
didn't
now.
realize.
She's out
Okay,
now.
no, I didn't realize Denny Dillon was out. Okay.
Yeah, I mean
Um,
she's out now. I'm not
mhm.
out. I'm not outing her on this podcast. She's out now, but she says like yeah on the when she was on the show she was not out.
Oh, okay, okay. I wasn't aware of that. I missed that.
Well, now you
And
know.
Molly Carney, first ever non-binary cast member.
Yeah,
So it's kind of a shame that the show is a little less diverse now, and I hope that they're continuing to make an effort to get diverse cast members and a variety of voices on the show, because I think that's important that we get
yeah,
different
no,
points of view and different types of comedy on the show.
yeah, no, absolutely.
So,
I feel like when the show has more different types of view, you get a overall a better show.
mhm.
I mean, the season that we're about to talk about now, from season 20 and back in
Yeah.
'95, you could tell a lot of the material was just written by kind of straight white guys, and it just
Hmm.
after a while, it just seems kind of them just kind of repeating the same themes over and over again, like sketches about sports and kind of a lot of homophobic sketches and just like kind of
Yeah,
like
it was like the episode we're going to talk about in a little bit is from 1995, the 20th anniversary season, and yeah, there's still it's sort of the tail end of the frat bro years of SNL, I would say.
yeah, like I mean,
So,
we'll get into it, but I like even like when we talked about doing this episode, I knew it was in season 20, which is
mhm.
notorious for being probably one of the worst seasons. Like there are four episodes in particular that a lot of SNL nerds have said are some of the worst episodes SNL has ever put out. The George Foreman episode, the Deion Sanders episode, which came on
Right after,
right
yeah,
after this one, Paul Reiser episode, and Sarah Jessica Parker, which they are not good. So, but the fact that this episode that we're going to talk about soon is one of the better episodes made me feel a little bit better about us doing it.
yeah. Well, why don't we get into it? I mean, because the great Bob Newhart passed at the age of 94 just
Mm.
a couple weeks ago, and it's too much of a big passing for us not to acknowledge it and pay tribute to him. And he'd hosted SNL twice, once in 1980 and once in 1995, and we chose the 1995 episode.
Right.
This is from February 11th, 1995, season 20, episode 12.
Yes.
So,
Yeah, I mean Bob Newhart. I mean, what can you say about the man? I mean, I'm sure younger people now may not be as familiar with him, but
mhm.
I mean, the dude was like legitimately like a comedy genius
Legend.
legend in the
Yeah.
business. Like I know people throw around the word legend around. Oh, he's iconic, but
Hmm.
Bob Newhart was truly like a legend and truly iconic, and was doing sort of like a form of comedy that I don't know. People really don't even do that much nowadays. It was like very, he was kind of very subdued and
Yeah.
mild
He was
mannered.
one of a kind. Yeah.
Yeah, like his
And
comedy style was like one of a kind.
he would, like on his sitcoms, he had no fear of being the straight man, just reacting to all the insanity around him. He would traditionally be the. I mean, his comedy albums were. His first one was called "The Button Down Mind of Bob Newhart," and then his next few albums use that "button down mind"
Mm.
phrase a lot. And yeah, and I can't think of anything I ever saw him in that I didn't think he was great. Even
No,
if it's something where he just has like a bit part, like he has a bit part in at the tail end of Horrible Bosses, which we
Elf.
may, and Elf, which are both movies we may cover in the future. We talked about doing one or you know one of those. We also considered In and Out because that's another movie with Jim Cusack. But the problem is like he had small parts in all of them. So
Yeah, and there's that other film, First Family, he did with Gilda Radner, but that one's kind of hard to track down, and it's
it's
super
on the
obscure.
obscure side.
Oh,
I'd honestly forgotten that one existed.
I'd never even heard of it
Yeah,
until we I think like our fearless leader Franco Blaui talked about it.
yeah. And Frank is apparently a big First Family booster,
Yes.
and yeah, we decided that this was the best choice, and it was because we are an SNL podcast, and we thought let's be SNL centric, and we'll watch an episode.
Yeah, let's do that.
And we haven't really covered this era. This is an interesting era of the show because it's like 1995. This is a cast that only lasted for like a year in this form.
Yeah, like this. So this season was, I mean, this was the season I was like a senior in high school, and like I was still
Mhm.
watching SNL, but even I knew that the episodes weren't the best at this
Yeah,
point.
I was just out of college. I would have been going to the Kubert School at this point, my first year at the Kubert School, and it was this weird sort of hybrid cast. It was sort of like the remnants of the the Dana Carvey, Phil Hartman era. Like a lot of people who'd come on at the end of that
Yeah, yeah,
were
like
still there, and then a few people from the next generation. So it was a transitional year, I would say.
yeah, like Kevin Nealon was still on the cast,
Hmm.
but then we had like new cast members like Michael McKean.
Yeah,
Uh,
I'll read down the whole
oh, okay,
thing because I wrote down all the names in the open. We have Ellen Cleghorn, Chris Elliott, Chris Farley, Janine Garofalo, Norm Macdonald, Michael McKean, Mark McKinney, Tim Meadows, Kevin Nealon, Adam Sandler, David Spade, and our featured players are Laura Keitlinger and Jay Moore. So it's a very mixed bag of a cast.
very very much so. It's like a little bit of the olds, some of the new, and
Mhm.
it's yeah. I don't know. I remember this
And
season.
some people who you hear them like, oh, this person's on SNL. You're like, oh yeah, absolutely, that's a genius thing. That should be a home run. And yet somehow they never quite worked out. Like, I mean, I love Michael McKean. I love Ginny Garofalo. Neither one of them quite worked out as SNL cast members, and I don't think that's like on them.
Yeah,
Uh,
I think it
it's
might
just
be
the
more.
circumstances or timing or whatever.
Yeah, and also like the vibe at SNL at the time just seemed kind of dark and bleak. It just it wasn't as
Hmm.
lively as it should be, and
Yeah,
and the writing too. I got to say the writing was definitely didn't help either. I think also
they,
around this time, like Janine Garofalo left the show like halfway through the season, and then we got
yeah,
Molly Shannon to replace her. So like
that's right. Yeah.
there was a time where Kevin Nealon and Molly Shannon were on the cast at the same time.
That's weird to think. Yeah, there's always every once in a while you come across a cast combo where you're like, wait, those two people overlap, really? Okay,
Yeah,
um, but yeah, it's easy to forget this stuff because you in your mind you just sort of pigeonhole it into different eras, and you're like, oh no, those two eras didn't overlap, but nope, sure enough they did. Something I read on the SNL wiki was this episode, again, season 20, episode 12. Mike Myers had left the cast just a month before.
wow.
So he was finally removed from the opening credits in this episode. So, wow.
Yeah, this is yeah. You can again you like I said like this show has like a weird vibe to it too, where a lot of
Hmm.
a lot of the old guard like Spade and Sandler were kind of phoning it in, and it seemed like no one. I don't want to say no one cared, but it seemed like kind of like they were still they were just trying to figure out what is this show? What are we doing? Like I
Yeah,
believe, like didn't Lawrence say this was a like this season was the closest he ever got to getting fired? I believe.
probably. I think the show ratings were down a lot, and I think this is one of the times when you're seeing a lot of Saturday Night Dead stories in the media.
I remember
Um,
seeing that too. Yeah.
yeah. So I think after this season in particular, the press was so bad and the ratings were bad that Lauren was like, okay, it's time for me to do something drastic. So like the fall of 95 was when he like remade the show in a major way where most everybody in the cast was let go. And that
Right.
was when he brought in people like Will Ferrell and
Uh,
Daryl Hammond and Sherry O'Terry and other people like that who were unknowns then but became sort of the next generation of SNL stars.
right. And then that's when the life kind of came back into the show.
And he hung on to a few people from this cast as he is wont to do, like Tim Meadows and David Spade, and who else? Norm Macdonald was hung in there for a little while too, so before he
Right.
was
Right.
eventually fired, which is a whole story in itself. Uh,
Oof. Oh boy. Yeah. Do you?
check out our episode on Dirty Work, our Norm Macdonald tribute episode. I'm sure we get into it into there, but all right, should we dive into this episode?
Let's dive into this episode.
Okay, so starting out, we have the Colin Ferguson trial cold open. Do you remember the Colin Ferguson story at all?
I do, but that's mainly because I grew up in the tri-state area, and if you were in the tri-state area in the '90s, like this was a big deal. So like
Hmm.
but like I understand how a lot of people might not remember it just because it was kind of
It's faded
overshadowed.
in my memory. I remember one of my teachers at the Kubert School talking about it, and like when I was watching the sketch, like some of the details were coming back to me, but I hadn't thought about this in so freaking long.
Right. It kind of got overshadowed by the OJ trial because it happened around the same time.
Right.
So for those that don't know, back in December of '93, on the Long Island Railroad, a man named Colin Ferguson uh, did a mass shooting and shot at numerous people on the train. He 6 of them were killed, 19 were wounded before some passengers tackled him and held him down before the cops got to him.
Mm.
And but yeah, he just shot up people on a train, and
And,
but and
and
it,
the insane thing is in the trial he chooses to defend himself.
yeah, the trial was a bit of a circus, but yes, he what was it? Yeah, he decided he wanted to defend himself, represent himself, which ended up in him cross-examining on the stand the cops who arrested him
Hmm.
and some of the people he shot.
Yeah, he would like literally be asking witnesses on the stand. He was like, "Well, do you remember who shot you?" And the witness would be go like, "You did. You shot me. You were the one who shot me." And that is basically what they do in this sketch. It is not real exaggerated from the truth, from what I recall.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. Like he was sort of, I mean, but like it was wild. Like I remember this whole thing was premeditated. Like he had planned this out for like a week or so,
Uh
and
huh.
he was just a mentally ill person. I believe the defense of black rage became a sticking point because he was a black man, and he had like some scribblings in his notebooks about racism by Caucasians and Uncle Tom Negroes, according to Wikipedia. So
Oh boy.
he had a lot of messed up shit in his head.
Right, right. And this sketch gets into it. We've got Tim Meadows playing Colin Ferguson. We've got Michael McKean as the judge, Donald Belfi. Mark McKinney is George Peck, the prosecutor. Uh, Jay Moore is the bailiff. Kevin Nealon is Terry Moran, who is a Court TV host. And David Spade is playing Mark Schmidt, who is one of the people who was shot. And of course, we have our episode's host, Mr. Bob Newhart, as another
Ooh,
witness. Um, so it's very rare these days that you see the host in the cold open at all.
it
It was a
hap-
little more common back in the 90s.
it happens once in a while. Like I remember
Hmm.
that episode we talked when Miles Teller hosted and he was in the cold open. It does happen,
Hmm.
but it's like you said, it doesn't happen that often. Oh, and of course the Ao Ideburi episode where she popped up with Nikki Haley
Uh huh.
in that cold open, which did wonders for Nikki Haley's career, I guess.
Sure.
But yeah, I mean, as far as this cold open goes, I thought it was okay. It pretty much has Tim Meadows as kind of carrying it and just playing up the fact that this man is just out of his mind or just
Not in his right mind. Yeah,
yeah,
and
yeah.
it's like he's saying like I didn't shoot them, they shot me. Um, I was impressed with Bob Newhart on the stand where he's being asked a series of questions by Colin Ferguson, and Newhart finds like a half dozen different readings of just the word no, and
Yes.
and that's pretty impressive. I thought, yeah, Newhart's really good here.
Yeah, yeah. Newhart's good here. I would say Tim Meadows does what he can with this
Hmm.
material. Like he says, when he approaches the court, he says, "Ladies and gentlemen, thank you, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, and all beings visible and invisible." I was like, all right, that's something.
Yeah, yeah, and
And
he's talking about how um, like you didn't hear the voices in my head because the voices in my head they only talk to me on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Sundays, and
yeah,
it was okay. It wasn't a wonderful cold open.
yeah, it's like, well,
um
yeah, and he says like, "Oh, I was on the train. I was on that same train, and nobody shot me." Now, why is that?
yeah,
There's like,
this is
hmm,
one of those tough things where the real story is just so out there already. It's like, how do you make an exaggerated comedic version of it?
yeah,
And also, since it's a mass shooting, like, how do you do that and still have it be in any sort of good taste?
yeah, it's a tricky thing to do. Like, I
Yeah.
mean, I guess they chose the way of just kind of mocking how insane the guy is,
Hmm.
but it still uh it still didn't quite hit. I
Yeah,
thought.
it didn't send me in a big way. I mean, half of me was like, "Oh yeah, I sort of remember this," and it was like kind of coming back to me over the course of the sketch. But I guess I was most impressed with Bob Newhart in this.
Yeah, yeah,
I
no,
would
for
say.
sure. And we'll get to more of Newhart in the monologue we got.
In the monologue, first off, have to note Newhart has a mic stand.
My man.
I'm endlessly fascinated, endlessly amused by how when a stand-up comedian hosts SNL, usually they give him a hand mic. Bob Newhart is like, no, I need a mic and a mic stand because I'm gonna do my one of my classic phone bits. I need both hands free, baby.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and that's I mean, for the younger listeners, that's one of the things that Newhart is most known for. Is like he would have these bits where he would be on the phone with somebody
Hmm.
and talking to somebody, and the jokes would be in a one-sided conversation you could hear
Right.
with somebody, and there'd be jokes built into that, and it'd be
Yeah.
hilarious, which is
Hmm.
another testament to his comedic genius.
Yeah, and he does a bit here. He's talking about um, the ending of King Kong, where King Kong climbs the Empire State Building, and he says, like, well, what if that was a security guard's first night working as a security guard?
Right.
And he goes into this bit, and I tried to track down the source of this bit because it seemed like a very well uh, well rehearsed bit.
Right.
And I don't think I could find the original source. It is on a 1992 special he did called Off the Record, but
Oh.
apparently that was a bunch of his classic bits all together.
Okay.
It doesn't seem to be on Button Down Mind of Bob Newhart or his next few albums. I was looking for like Bob Newhart track listings, and I couldn't track down the original source. But
Okay.
but it is like a classic Bob Newhart bit apparently.
Oh, I did not even know that. I mean, it definitely
Mhm.
sounds like something he's done before. Because, like, when he introduces it, he says, "Oh, I love being here back in New York. I love the Empire State Building. One of my favorite movies is King Kong." And
Mhm.
and then he says, "But then, well, but I'll get back to that in a minute." And then he talked about how he
Right.
works for an employment compensation company board, and how you'd have to go through orientation. And so then he wondered, what if somebody's first job orientation was working at the Empire State Building when King
Mhm.
Kong. So he kind of combines the two things he brought up, his two
Right.
interests,
Right.
into this well rehearsed joke.
Yeah, and I liked how he observed, like when he was working for the unemployment board, he made $60 a week. Claimants made 55, and they only had to come in one day a week. So he managed to he divined a way to get fired. So he only had to come in one day a week, and then he was only $5 shorter.
Yeah. Hey man,
So
work smarter, not harder.
exactly. I really like that. So, I mean, it was a good, solid stand up bit. If you want to check it out, it is on YouTube. By the way, I don't want to say this entire episode is on Peacock, but most of this episode is on Peacock. A
Yeah,
couple sketches are missing.
yeah. We'll
And
mention it too, but yeah, there are two
yeah,
sketches that are missing.
yeah.
But yeah,
And the musical segments,
yes,
but that's not too surprising because usually those are eliminated because of rights issues or whatever.
right. Musical guest Desiree will not. We will not be talking about that on this episode.
Because we didn't see them.
Nope.
Um,
But yeah, I did like the monologue. I thought his comedy style, it kind of feels like the comedy styles of a bygone era,
mhm.
especially like in the mid '90s. Like his style of comedy really wasn't being done anymore. Like it was like in the mid '90s, it was more kind of edgy, in your face, like very cutting type of comedy, and he's like the total opposite. Like he's more thoughtful and like slow. I won't say slow pace, but there's a
Yeah, very deliberately paced, though. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely.
Um,
So, but yeah, but like his comedy, and like for a while, I thought like his comedy maybe wouldn't fit this era of SNL, but they
mhm.
did. I would say they did find ways in this episode to sort of fit his comedic styling to some of the sketches in here, because like you could definitely see like Norm Macdonald was definitely influenced by him. Kevin Nealon is definitely influenced by Bob Newhart, but
Yeah.
they were able to find ways to sort of fit his vibe into the show.
Yeah. And Newhart was in an interesting sort of. spot in his career at this time because he'd of course already done his classic sitcoms, the Bob Newhart Show, which lasted from 72 to 78, and Newhart, which lasted from 82 to 90, and he'd also already done this short-lived sitcom called Bob, which
Mm.
is of interest to me because he played a comic book artist
Ooh.
on there, and some real life comic book artists actually cameoed on the show in one episode as like Bob's poker buddies.
Oh,
And
nice.
it's a real odd combo of comic artists too. We've got it was like Jack Kirby and Bob Kane and Jim Lee, and I'm like, oh yeah, I'm sure those three hang out all the time.
Bob Cave and Jin Lee walk into a bar.
Yeah, exactly. But Bob had already come to an end. I just looked it up. That the last episode of that aired in 1993. So I can't imagine what Bob Newhart could have been plugging at this point. I don't think he was still a couple years away from doing George and Leo. I guess they just had him on because he's freaking Bob Newhart.
Yeah.
But
No, absolutely.
so
That
anyway,
seemed to be a thing.
so I just find it interesting that they had him on just because he's a legend and not because he was plugging anything in particular. Apparently.
Yeah, that seems to be it. That just is just like, well, he's a comedy legend. He's influenced us all. Let's have him on just to pay tribute to this guy. And like, you can tell a lot of the cast. I mean, we'll get into it. But you can tell like a lot of the cast members were really kind of in awe of him and really
Hmm.
loved performing with him. And
Yeah.
so like, let's have him on before the big Deion Sanders episode.
Yeah. So the first sketch, which is not on Peacock, and we were not able to find that elsewhere. Here, I'm going to read the description from SNL Wiki. It says Bob Newhart reprises the role of Dr. Robert Hartley, who's the character he played on the Bob Newhart Show, who cancels bizarre family sex problem. Jay
Oh,
Moore plays the host Ricky Lake. Okay, that's an interesting choice. With Ellen Cleghorn as various audience members, Chris Farley as Ned, Laura Keitlinger as Sarah, Michael McKean as Frank, and David Spain as Alan. Don't really know what the joke is outside of him playing Bob Hartley on the Ricky Lake show, which was kind of that was more of like a tabloid type show, right?
Ricky Lake. Yeah, it's like a daytime talk show.
Yeah,
People coming on with relationship problems. I mean, it wasn't full on Jerry Springer, Maury Povich,
right,
but it came a little close. But it was a little bit more kind of flower. It was a little bit more
right.
toned
On a
down than
scale
that.
from like Jerry Springer to Oprah, she might have been the midpoint.
Yes, that's actually a great analogy. Yes,
Well, thank you, thank you. I'm very proud of my analogies.
bravo. Yeah, it was like a Jenny Jones vibe. But yes, absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. Anyway, so I wish I could have seen that. I don't. I'm wondering why that sketch is missing. My best guess would be like music rights. Maybe they used some of the theme from the Ricky Lake show or something. Or
Yeah, I would say so. But yeah, that sounds about right.
yeah, I don't know. Just a guess.
Yeah.
But we had the next sketch, Book Buzz. This was
Buzz.
a twofer with Bob Newhart and Chris Farley. Uh, Newhart plays the host Maximilian Breckenridge. Great name.
Hmm.
And his guest is a fellow by the name of Sorensen, who's come up with the Sorensen Book of World Records, like the Guinness Book of World Records, but it's only records that he can personally verify.
Right. So in his book, which is a lot thinner than the Guinness Book of World Records, he says that the biggest number of burgers ever eaten is 5.5, and
Hmm.
that was done by his brother.
Yes,
Whereas in the
yes,
Guinness Book of World Records, it's actually 87 hamburgers.
right.
And like when he asked Sorensen about that, he was like, "Yeah, no, I can't verify that. I mean, that sounds impossible. Like my brother ate 5.5, and it almost killed him."
Yeah, yeah. And then his world record for the world's tallest man is 6 feet 5 inches tall, which is another guy that he knows.
Yeah, his friend Pete.
Yeah, his friend Pete and Bob Newhart's asking him like, well, what about all these professional basketball players? And he's like, well, I've never met any of them. So, and it sort of emerges that most of his world records are centered around his hometown of Granville, New Mexico.
uh, yeah, like it's. I don't. I mean, the sketch is
Yeah,
interesting. It's got a decent premise, but
it's interesting to see Newhart's energy with Farley's energy because they had such different energies.
Yes, very much so. It's like I said, like Bob Newhart is more muted, toned down,
Yeah,
and Chris Farley is anything but.
yeah. I mean, honestly, this kind of reminded me of on Newhart, like in I don't think he did this in the first season, but like at a certain point on the Newhart show, because he ran a hotel in the New York on the Newhart show,
Hmm.
or an inn, I should say, and then he started hosting a local talk show, and he'd have a lot of odd guests on there that Newhart could react to, and this kind of reminded me this could have been a scene from Newhart in that regard.
Yeah,
So
yeah, I could see that.
yeah. So
Absolutely.
I grew up on Newhart. The Bob Newhart show was a little before my time. I saw a few when it was like in syndication or when it was on Nick at Night, but I haven't seen like all of that show. Yeah, Newhart was much more my thing because it was on in the '80s when I was growing up.
Right, that's the one with the. I mean, I didn't watch as much Newhart as you did, but I knew
Hmm.
of it. I mean, of course, I knew the whole thing with oh, it was my brother Daryl and my other brother Daryl.
Yeah,
But
Larry, Daryl, and Daryl, the three woodsmen. Yeah,
yeah, but that's it. I mean, that's the one that kind of sticks out in my mind, just because like it's a funny little thing to kind of bring up and whatnot.
yeah, yeah, and the wonderful Peter Scolari was on
Yes.
there too
Yeah, yeah, because like oh,
as
I was like, oh, it's the guy from Bosom Buddies. Nice.
yeah, yeah, as Dick Loudon's producer on the talk show, and he was like this yuppie extraordinaire, and he won an Emmy or two for that part, as I recall, and he was wonderful, and it was really nice to see Peter Scolari get a little love.
He
Still underrated.
so underrated. Like I feel like he should have had a bigger career. Like he's God, justice for Peter Scolari on his
Yeah,
hashtag
yeah,
it.
love him. He was great guy, and yeah, bosom buddies, great sitcom, still holds up well.
Yes, release a Scolari cut.
Yes. So let's see. Next, we had music segments with Desiree. She performed her hit "You Gotta Be,"
Hmm.
and her second song was "Feels So High," which I do not remember at all.
That one I don't remember either, just because
Yeah,
I know "You Gotta Be" was like the big kind of radio
yeah.
hit. But yeah, feels so
And I
high.
didn't I didn't remember "You Gotta Be" until you started like singing it to me last week. But I was like, oh, you gotta be da 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 da
Yeah,
da da.
it
Yeah,
was.
yeah. I don't
Yeah.
remember the lyrics, but I was like, oh yes, I remember that song. I remember seeing Andy Richter parodying that song on Conan O'Brien.
Oh yeah. Whoa. Holy
Yeah.
moly. Yeah, I do remember that.
That's the main reason I remember that song is because I've probably seen Andy Richter lip sync that song more than Desiree perform it. So,
Nice. But yeah, yeah. Uh, so after those performances, we go right into weekend update. I was actually kind of surprised at how early in the show this pops up, but I guess it's not. It's about right if you.
Weekend Update is a lot deeper into the show than it used to be. I mean, it used to
Yeah,
be you'd get to it in the first half hour.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, yeah. Weekend update with the late great Norm Macdonald.
Hmm.
Had some surprise, surprise. Has some jokes about O.J. Simpson.
Yeah, yeah,
Shocking.
yeah. It talked about, like there was a story apparently that Johnny Cochran had abused his ex-wife, and they make up a quote from Cochran saying like, "Hey, at least I didn't kill her,"
Ah,
unlike some people I know.
yeah, because he killed his wife. Yeah,
Right,
yeah.
and they talk about how the jurors were touring the crime scene of the murders, and OJ didn't go because it was like been there, done that.
Yeah.
So
Yikes. He's still going strong with these OJ jokes.
yeah.
Yeah.
Uh,
Uh,
One thing that really struck me was he had a joke about there being an all golf channel, and they were like, it shows golf 24 hours a day, except for like between the hours of 2 and 3 a.m. when it shows the Byron Allen show. And I
yes.
was like, that joke is still current. Because if you turn on, I haven't watched lately, but like if you are an insomniac, at a certain point, this Byron Allen show of Comics Unleashed comes on in the wee hours of the morning at like 2 or 3 in the morning.
He's
And
got
it is.
yeah.
I mean, you've seen it, right?
I have. I mean, yeah, I have seen it from time to time, but yeah, it's like you said. Like, he has that insomniac crowd on lock. Apparently, that audience because like yeah, it does. at around 2 or 3 in the morning. It's just like him
Right.
talking to some other comedians there to promote some stuff.
He's
And
yeah, he's got like four different comedians, and I don't think they're even promoting stuff. It's just him giving awkward setups to bits from their act, and then the comedians are basically doing bits from their act to each other, and everybody laughs like it's a spontaneous conversation, but it's so not. It's I find it fascinating, one, for how artificial it is, and two, how fucking out of date it is at this point, because this is like stuff from like the 90s or early 2000s,
yeah,
and they're still running it for some reason.
yeah, it's like, hey, Judd, I heard you like to wear hats.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I was out of Florida with my wife, and we had to pick up this hat, and they go into a bit, and it's not any sort of conversation. It's just
No,
and it is literally, the setup is literally as artificial as what Darren just said.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's not organic at all.
So Darren, you like to go to a lot of concerts, huh?
Funny you ask. Funny you
Yeah.
say that, John. I do like to go concert. Actually, the other day, and blah
Hmm.
blah 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 blah.
Yeah, yeah, and I find it just perversely fascinating. Also, it's just like, why is this still airing? Why is it just because this is the cheapest fucking thing you could find
Yup.
for this time slot? It's incredible. I was just like, this joke is like, or this episode is like nearly 30 years old, and somehow the Byron Allen joke is still current.
Still applicable.
And then lastly, we had David Spade doing a Hollywood Minute type of segment, but I don't think they were calling it the Hollywood Minute segment yet. And this was Cindy Crawford had just separated from her husband, Richard Gere. And so David Spade was evaluating her potential new suitors.
Yeah. So then it's just David Spade kind of running down people she could be
Right.
dating, and then just
And,
kind of.
and I've got the list here. I wrote down all the names. We got, he goes through Scott Baio, Kato Kalin, Al Cowlings, Bud Bundy from Married with Children. He never calls him by the actor's name. He just says Bud Bundy.
Yeah.
Axl Rose, Ponch from Chips, Eddie Furlong from Terminator 2, Fred Schneider from the B-52s, Joey Buttafuoco, Katie Lang, and JFK Jr. It is the most 1990s list ever.
Yes, this is the '90s incarnate.
This is like a snapshot of where pop culture was in 1995.
Absolutely. But yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like him going down that list and kind of
Mhm.
taking a shot at all these people.
Yeah. And, we have gay jokes about Fred Schneider and Katie Lang, where
Yeah.
the joke is just essentially, haha, they're gay. And
Get
therefore
it?
wouldn't be, and therefore wouldn't, well, like Fred Schneider wouldn't be interested in her. What was the joke with Katie Lang? I can't remember.
Yeah,
It was another basically, haha, she's gay.
yeah, and he didn't even have a joke. He just like, oh, Katie Lang, oh, she's not supposed to be there. How's she getting there? And then he kind of went on to the next one. There was some of these he didn't really have jokes for,
Yeah.
like Axl Rose. You can't. We don't know where Axl Rose is. You can't find him. And then he just went on to the next one. Like some of them, it felt like he kind of gave up on a few of these halfway through. It's like, oh, this isn't really that funny.
Mm-hmm.
But like some of them did have a bigger pop, like
Yeah.
Ponch or the Bud Bundy one.
Yeah. Yeah. I
But
don't know. Maybe some of them would have made more sense in the time or something. I don't know.
yeah, I don't know. I mean, if you're a fan of David Spade's kind of snarky, kind of shtick, I guess, or his style of comedy, then I think you'll like.
You don't sound like you're a big fan, Darren.
I was. The weird thing is, I kind of was at one point. I actually thought David Spade was pretty funny, but like I look at it now,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if maybe my taste in comedy has changed, or I'm a more mature man. But like I see it as kind of all right. He's just like playing like a too cool for school type of guy who's just like,
Yeah. It also plays differently when you're like older than him, I think.
yeah. And
Like watching it now at like in my 50s, I'm just like, who is this punk kid?
yeah, maybe that's it. Like it's
But David Spade is like older than me. So
he is. He's like what, mid-50s or something?
yeah, he's got to be at least in his middle 50s, because he was early 20s when he was on SNL, and that was 30 years ago. So
Yeah.
math. Um,
But yeah, like I mean, at the time when I was a kid, and I would be like 19 or something. But
Mhm.
I thought like, oh, he's telling like it is. He's taking shots at these celebs. Oh, he's cool. He's a rebel. But I look at it now and it's like, he's kind of it's kind of like snarky. It's like, oh, these aren't I cool because I'm taking a
Yeah,
shot at these?
it comes off very smug, and like
Yes.
I have a different opinion of David Spade now. I've listened to a few episodes of the Fly in the Wall podcast that he does with Dana Carvey, and I enjoy him on that. But yeah, here it's I don't know. It's not David Spade at his best, I would say.
Yeah, it's a like he kind of plays it off as he's being self-deprecating at some points, but then it comes across as being, like you said, very smug, like
Hmm.
almost Bill Maher level of smugness, but not
Yeah, which is
quite.
very off-putting.
It is, and also, yeah, David Spade just turned 60 a month ago,
Oh, okay,
so
okay,
he
yeah.
is
So he does have a few years on me.
right,
So
right.
he would have been, gosh, he would have been like 29 or 30 here.
I think that's how math works. Yeah,
Yeah, my goodness, I wouldn't have guessed he was that old.
yeah, he's long.
Baby face, man.
Baby face, man. Just just drink water,
Yeah.
moisturize. Don't get married, apparently.
Yeah.
And you too can have the youthful appearance of David Spade.
Okay, and we're also closing out. We had Adam Sandler singing a Valentine's song. Uh, and Norm Macdonald, he obviously has a real affection for David Spade and for Sandler. From he gives him nice introductions. He's like, "Oh, my friend David Spade and my hero Adam Sandler."
Yeah, Adam Sandler gets a huge applause break for that
Yeah,
too.
this is like peak Adam Sandler here
Yes.
on SNL. I'd say he was immensely popular at this point in time, and he would just be like, "Lord, I have a song I just
I
made up.
I
I
just
just made up this afternoon. Can I do it on the show?
I got a show.
I got a song."
Oh, but yeah,
Yeah. Where yes, I suppose you could do the song,
thank you.
Adam.
Oh, but yeah, oh.
Thank you, Lord. Thank you, Lord. I will get my guitar and I will wear my very best sweatshirt.
Oh, yeah. Oh, poor Adam. If ever Adam Sandler ever heard this podcast, he'd be like, "People, I don't talk like that anymore, guys. Come on."
I know, but it's just so much fun to do.
It really
Like,
is. It really.
it's just so much fun to imagine that he talks like that
Yes.
nonstop.
We do it with affection. We do it with affection, Adam.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, so his Valentine's song is "Sex Phone Lady," where he's just talking about calling a phone sex line,
yes.
which was a thing that people still did in the '90s, I think, because it was like still partly a pre-internet age.
Yeah, like I don't remember using the internet until I got to college when I'd have
Right.
to I still remember signing up for my first Hotmail account in the computer lab at
Oh, you were
college.
Hotmail. I was AOL. I
Ooh.
was AOL. Yeah.
But Hotmail was free though. That's why. Cost effective. I think
Yeah.
AOL you still had to like pay for, right?
Well, you got those discs in the mail, and
Uh,
yeah, I mean, so it was really easy to set up that way, and most everybody I knew seemed to be on AOL, so I was like, okay, I guess I'll do AOL,
I
and then eventually I was like, oh, AOL sucks. I'm going to Gmail, and
yeah, no,
yeah.
I was Hotmail with the other rebels,
Hmm.
just
Hmm.
in the computer lab, just looking for sneakers on eBay.
Yeah.
But,
what else? What else is a black young man to do in the '90s than look for sneakers on eBay?
look for sneakers, look into hair care products,
Right.
buy vinyl.
Right.
The latest hip hop
And
trends.
the called phone sex lines apparently.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
I don't know. I was trying to when I was watching this, I was like, I don't think I've ever called up a phone sex line. I
I
don't remember ever doing that.
I don't either.
But
I think I might have.
yeah.
I might have called like one of those because it had those things where you could call like. I mean, I never called like New Kids on the Block or something like that, but they
Uh-huh.
had stuff where you could call like some of your biggest music stars or that you're a fan like Wilson,
Hmm.
like the Fresh Prince of Bel Air. You could call him and talk
I
to the
remember
Fresh
the
Prince.
band. I don't know if they still have this going, but the band They Might Be Giants. They had a service called Dial a Song, where you
Oh,
could dial like I think it was a 900 number, and you could hear a song, and you'd often hear like some of their new songs in like embryonic form.
hmm.
Um, I don't know if that's still a thing that they have going on or not. I would guess probably not, but
Oh,
Anyway,
that sounds pretty neat.
yeah, it was neat. It was neat. Yeah.
Okay, cool. All right, but yeah. So in this song, Adam Sandler has a song about calling sex phone ladies
Hmm.
workers. He kind of does it in this like deep voice, like a almost like a Roy Orbison type of vibe he
Hmm.
has going on here, and he's talked about how he's calling her, over 12 times a day just to make her help her make ends meet because she's doing it for money, and
Right.
and at the end of the song he tells her like his name is Chris Farley.
Yeah. Yeah. That was a joke at the end. It's all right.
Yeah,
I was never too nuts about Adam Sandler coming on to Weekend Update and performing the song.
yeah. I think it's like
Honestly, I wasn't much of an Adam Sandler fan when he was on SNL. I found him annoying more often than not.
yeah, a lot. I mean, it is. I don't know the Adam Sandler years. I think about like how he just really just blew up from
Hmm.
being on an SNL, and it definitely kind of sparked a new era, or
Yeah.
said like between like people that were love the old SNL in the '80s with like Phil Hartman and Jan Hooks, and then it
Yeah.
turned into this like fret bro kind of man child version of
Yeah, I
SNL.
think I was just a shade too old to really dig the Adam Sandler, Chris Farley, David Spade era.
Yeah,
Because I was like in my early 20s at that point. I think if I was 17, I would have been much more into it.
yeah. I mean, there were a couple of sketches that he did that think still hold up. Like Schmidt's Gay and whatnot. But
Hmm.
yeah, like for the most part, I thought
That's great, but it needs the original Van Halen musical cue.
yes, absolutely. That goes
Yeah,
without saying.
it's so much funnier with beautiful girls,
Yeah, bam,
and and
bam.
they've yeah, and they've replaced it with like this generic music because I guess that they didn't have the rights to Beautiful Girls anymore. But it's so much funnier with Beautiful Girls.
It is.
It's so sad what they've done to Schmidt's Game.
Look how they massacred my boy, my
Yeah,
my Schmidt's
exactly,
gay.
exactly.
Uh,
So
but
I
yeah,
don't know. I mean, this is a real time capsule weekend update. I mean, because weekend update is like the most topical part of the show typically. So
yes, this screams '90s,
scream 90s,
just hollering '90s, and oh
hollering 90s from
yeah,
the top of the mountaintop. And speaking of the 90s,
mm,
we have another sketch that is not on Peacock, and I was horribly disappointed to find that this sketch was not on Peacock because the description sounds amazing. It is called Baywatch, and it says civilian Bob Newhart saves drowning man Chris Farley when Baywatch team don't react. Also features Janine Garofalo as Pamela Anderson slash CJ Parker, Laura Keitlinger as Yasmin Bleeth, Caroline Holden, Michael McKean as David Hasselhoff slash Mitch Buchanan, Mark McKinney as David Charvet slash Matt Brody, and Jay Moore as Jason Simmons slash Logan Fowler.
wow,
So, wow.
holy
Okay.
moly,
I want to sit down and talk about the casting in the sketch for about 20 minutes.
this was
This is something else.
really
This
something.
First of all, nobody plays Stephanie. What the hell's going on? Um, hashtag justice for Stephanie.
Yes,
Um, I want to see this sketch because I just want to see Janine Garofalo questioning every choice in her life that led to her playing Pamela Anderson in an SNL sketch.
yeah. Like I mean, I found out about this through the website one SNL.com, the SNL one a
Okay,
day,
yeah,
and they do
yeah.
have some screen caps of how this sketch looks, and yeah, it is Janine Garofalo in a blonde wig with.
Do you have those handy? Please forward those to me.
I shall. So I'll.
Send me a link. I will look at them post haste.
You know what? I'm going to
Uh,
do it right now as we
I
record.
I need to see this. Yes, absolutely. I mean, okay, so Janine Garofalo as Pamela Anderson. I can't wrap my head around that. Keitlinger as Yasmin Bleeth. Yeah, I can kind of see that. Michael McKean as David Hasselhoff. That's a weird fit, but I guess he was the only person they had that was age appropriate.
Yeah, I
Uh,
just sent you the link.
okay, was it via email or?
No, in the Zencaster in the notes.
In the Zencaster.
Zencaster.
That's the one place I wasn't expecting. Okay, let me. I was looking on our Facebook chat, and I was looking. Okay, so let's see. Let's scroll down. Oh, we got some screen caps of the Ricky Lake.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Jay Moore in that dark wig. Okay. And Ellen Cleghorn changing stuff because I guess they didn't have any other black ladies on the show.
No, they didn't.
So yeah,
Ellen Cleghorn
this
was
was an era that would just be like, oh, we got one black lady, and that's enough.
that's good.
Oh my god! I just got to the Baywatch screen caps. Oh my god!
Right, right,
Oh my god! Okay.
right.
Wow.
Look what they denied us, John.
Uh, the look of pain on Janine Garofalo's face.
I
She's in this blonde wig, and she's got these mammoth fake boobs on her, and she's like smiling, but there is some discomfort in that smile.
yeah. I'm so sorry, Janine. I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
I'm so,
And she's wearing like bikinis, and she's wearing like shorts, or not a bikini. She's wearing the Baywatch one piece swimsuit,
right.
and she's got, it looks like she's wearing shorts on top of that. And
Yeah.
McKean has like jet black hair as Hasselhoff, which is kind of weird because Hasselhoff has brown hair.
Yeah. There's that too.
Um, okay, Jay Moore is Logan. He was the Australian guy. This sketch would work much better for me because I never watched much Baywatch in the '90s, and I actually I have seen more Baywatch now because of my insomnia. Because Heroes and Icons used to air Baywatch in the middle of the night, and something you could watch and not care if you're if you fall asleep in the middle of it.
Yeah, like I remember Baywatch being a huge deal back in the '90s, like
Yeah,
so much so that other like sitcoms and shows would reference it. But like, yeah,
yeah,
I never really kind of took to it. Just
yeah.
I mean, I know like the big appeal with beautiful people on the beach running, and
Right,
boobs go up and down. But like,
right.
I still
And yeah, pre-internet age
yeah,
again. People couldn't get the cyber porn quite yet, so
not yet, not like
they made
now.
do with Baywatch. I'm looking at a shot of like a group shot of everybody, um, and because they're comedians, the guys aren't anywhere near as cut as the people on Baywatch.
Nope.
Mark McKinney is just very average build.
Yes.
Jay Moore is in better shape than I would have guessed.
Yeah. No, he's kind of yoked.
He's kind of muscular for a
Yeah,
comedian.
he's no Matt Rife, but he's all right.
Yeah, Keitlinger and Garofalo, they're in the one-piece Baywatch swimsuits, and then shorts over it. And most everybody's wearing shoes
Yeah, they're wearing like kind of like black socks because I guess they don't want to go
or
barefoot.
slippers or something.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like I guess they don't want to go barefoot in the sand.
or barefoot in the studio, more likely.
Yeah, that's true. But I mean, there's sand on in the
Right.
studio. But
Yes. Yes.
yeah, but
This is fascinating. I need to see this. Okay.
so we'll try to find this, sir. We will try to find this.
We need to reach out to the one SNL a day people and please send us footage of this. We need to see this.
Please do.
But I just keep coming back to that expression on Janine Garofalo's face. She's just like, "How did I get here?
Yes.
What did I? What eldritch god did I piss off in a former life that this is my fate?"
Yeah, you see that picture, and the theme song to Curb Your Enthusiasm plays in your head.
Yes,
Boom,
yes.
boom, boom.
It says in the summary on one SNL a day, I bet Janine particularly hates playing this role. Yeah, she had to. She had to.
Yeah,
I want like a documentary about the making of this sketch.
yeah, I feel like I want to like give Janine a hug or just something. Just I'm so sorry for the way you were. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, it was just, and you look at it on paper, and Janine Garofalo as an SNL cast member, that should have been a home run, but just because of bad timing and maybe bad temperament it just didn't work out, which is a shame because I feel like under the right circumstances, she could have been great on the show.
I think so. Yeah, it's just the timing was not
Yeah.
great.
I also just don't get that jet black hair on McKean as Hasselhoff.
That's hair and makeup. We got to talk to them about that.
That's weird. That's just weird.
Very strange.
Anyway, okay. Should we move on to other sketches? I don't want to, but I feel like we should.
Well, let's. Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah, let's move on to. I mean, sketches we have seen, like
Yes.
Post Office HR.
Yeah. This is on YouTube as Postal Worker Evaluation. So that's how I have it
Okay.
in my notes. Yeah. So from this episode, we have uh, several of the Newhart sketches. We have his monologue on there. We have the postal worker evaluation, and I think there was like one more,
Uh,
the High Bob sketch, which is the next sketch after this
yes,
one.
yes.
Yeah. So
Uh,
what did you think about postal worker evaluation, Darren?
I thought it was interesting. Like, basically, it's a sketch with just Bob Newhart, which SNL
Hmm.
rarely does, and it's kind of shot in the same
Yeah.
way as the Continental sketch with Christopher Walken, where
Yeah.
we see the point of view of the person Bob's talking to. He's basically just talking
Yeah.
right into the camera.
He's playing directly to camera. Yeah.
Yeah,
And Newhart's interviewing because the post office has had a lot of problems with disgruntled employees. This was like a big news story in the 90s. Was there were a fair amount of mass shootings from postal workers, and it's become kind of a cliche since then.
yeah. That term "going postal" was
Right,
made a big thing back in the '90s from all the postal worker shootings.
right, and I can't tell you the last time I heard about that actually happening for real. But yeah, going postal was still a phrase because that happened enough times in the 90s that people talked about it, made jokes about it, and stuff. So
Yeah, yeah. So, I mean, this is one of the sketches I thought fit Bob's delivery pretty perfectly, where he's just like kind of
mhm.
calmly talking to this postal worker, just kind of saying things like, "Oh, well, I see that you're a 46-year-old and you're divorced. Was it an amicable divorce?" Of course, says no.
Yeah,
You live
and the
with
camera would shake back and forth.
yes,
No.
and he's talking about the questionnaire he had everybody fill out, and he
Mhm.
says, "Well, on the questionnaire under Social Security number, you wrote, 'What is it to you?'" Now, is
Yeah,
that a joke, or are you
yeah,
serious about that?
yeah. So the joke is basically he's trying to gauge if this person is possibly going to become a shooter. Um, and it's basically like Newhart doing one of his telephone bits, except he's just playing it directly to camera.
Right? Yeah. So I thought this was
And that,
creative. I'll say that.
yeah, yeah, this is a good way to use Newhart and him doing what he's doing best, and it's basically just him carrying the whole thing. Um, and the employee hates sorting mail. He's disgruntled by the questionnaire, and I think my favorite bit was like at one point, like he finds out that the devil is talking to this employee, and he's like, "Oh no, no, no! I'm not calling your dog a liar."
That was funny. That was the funniest
Yeah,
line. Yeah, and it's like you said. Like he says, like the least favorite part about his job is sorting the mail, which is unfortunate because he is a mail sorter.
yeah,
And Yeah, and then of course Bob Newhart tells him, yeah, we always like to have all our workers wear the post office uniform. I see you're wearing army fatigues,
yeah. You're
which
wearing combat fatigues.
combat fatigues,
Yes.
which is maybe a little frowned upon.
Yeah.
And then it ends with him saying, "Look, like this whole thing with the questionnaire. This isn't even my idea. It's the boys upstairs want this, and
Hmm.
if you want to talk to them, they're right upstairs, and you can talk to them directly."
Yep.
And so it's just basically Bob kind of figuring out this guy is unhinged and directing him to the people above him to maybe
Yeah.
take his aggression out on.
This was all right. How'd you like this, Darren?
I thought it was all right. Again, like I feel like, I mean, it played on a lot of the tropes. Like,
Hmm.
oh, postal worker, crazy, single, divorced, living alone, army fatigues, like all the tropes that you'd see in like a lone shooter. Like I felt like I think if the writing was a little bit tighter, this could have really been something. I will admit that the whole talking to the camera aspect of it was original and not original, but it was pretty creative and unique. And I would like to see
Hmm.
SNL do kind of more things like that. It's really kind of break up the format a little bit or
Yeah.
the formula of a sketch. But yeah, like as I think the writing wasn't as strong as the concept of the sketch.
Yeah. I think Newhart performed it really well. It's just he has such a different energy than what the show typically has.
Yes.
So it's a weird fit. And
Yeah.
this whole episode and this sketch in particular, I think displays what an odd fit Newhart is for SNL. Because really, the show has to bend to his energy.
Yeah, very much so. It's a lot of, I think, I said it earlier in the episode where like it's a lot more kind of aggressive, in your face energy, which was the thing in the
Mm-hmm.
'90s. It was a lot more
Yeah.
kind of raw, and Bob Newhart is not that. He's like,
I mean, can you imagine him being on the show during like the Belushi era when like half the cast was doing cocaine?
I cannot. I can't imagine.
Yeah.
Like,
Because like his first hosting gig was in '80, so that would have been after Belushi left the show. Was that in the Gene Domanian era?
I believe so. Let me.
Yeah, I'd have to look up the air date of his 1980 episode. I didn't really research that one, so
Okay, well, I'll look that up right now.
yeah.
But yeah, it's like a thing where his energy, like I said earlier, like his style of comedy is of almost like a bygone era of
Hmm.
comedy that people weren't, or people really aren't doing that much now. Like maybe you could say, I don't know, maybe like I guess like Todd Barry or Dina Hashem are kind of carrying on the
Yeah, yeah.
his mantle, but like other
Okay, I
comics
just
are.
looked up Newhart's 1980 episode, and it was the tail end of the original cast era. So it was when the cast was Jane Curtin, Garrett Morris, Bill Murray, Lorraine Newman, Gilda Radner, and Harry Shearer, with Brian Doyle
Ooh,
Murray, Al Franken, and Paul Shaver as featured players. So
wow.
tail end of the fifth season,
Gil-
episode 18 of the fifth season.
Gilda Radner and Harry Shearer were on the same cast at the
Yeah,
same
Harry
time.
Shearer came in after Belushi and Aykroyd had left the show.
That is, I keep forgetting. That
So,
is wild.
what a small cast! Like 6 regular cast members and 3 featured players. That's got to be the smallest SNL cast ever, right?
Probably. I mean, I know like after everybody left and like the season 6
Hmm.
crew kicked in, that was only like maybe 7 of people or something like that. But
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
six
I mean, like 7 or 8 was like kind of the typical size of an SNL cast for ages, but I've never seen it be as low as 6. That's
six
something else.
six is pretty low. That's, you're asking a lot
6 is
of your cast members
you.
for
I
that.
mean, you pretty much have to do cocaine at that point.
Yeah, that's the only way. How else are you going to get through it?
Exactly. So yeah, this was all right. Not quite as great as it could have been or should have been.
Yeah,
But
but
what you gonna do?
yeah, but we got to see Bob Newhart do what Newhart does.
Yeah, new hearten it up.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. All
Next.
right. So next we have Hi Bob. This is something that takes place backstage at SNL. We got Chris Farley, Chris Elliott. They're drinking shots whenever somebody says Hi Bob, which is like a drinking game that emerged out of the old Bob Newhart show, where because his character's name on that show was Bob, the thing was whenever somebody would say "Hi Bob" on the show, you would take a drink or take a shot or finish your drink.
Yeah, like I didn't even
So,
realize this was a drinking game, but apparently it was like
mhm.
a big deal for a while.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it was one of those not quite an urban legend, but it was one of those things that kind of spread around, sort of like 6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon or something like
Okay.
that in those pre-internet ages. I've also read that like you would take a shot whenever somebody just said Bob, and when somebody said Hi Bob, then you had to finish your drink. So that
Uh,
sounds even more hardcore.
Good lord.
So
Uh,
yeah.
but yeah. So basically, it's the two Chris's, Farley and Elliot,
Hmm.
just at a small little table surrounded with tons of shots there, and everybody.
Hmm.
Anytime somebody said, "Oh, hey, Bob," or "Hi, Bob," they would take a shot.
Right.
One there was one part where Spade walks by him and says, "Bob, hi," and then
Yeah.
you see them stopping for a minute and be like, "No, that counts."
What does that count? Yeah. And then like one person says hi and another person says Bob, and then they're like, and then they like consult a rule book to see if that. Uh, and it's a cute idea. We have Janine Garofalo come on playing herself, and they, I think, kind of revealingly, they cast Janine Garofalo as the wet blanket, which I feel
Yeah,
like that's probably how they were perceiving her
yeah,
on the show.
hmm, yeah. That's
Um,
a bummer. It's like, it's like, this girl with her thoughts.
yeah.
Always ruining our good time.
What is woman doing here?
Ah.
um, and yeah, and the joke there is that like Bob is behind the high Bob drinking game, and she's like, "Well, I hardly think that you don't have any connection to it," which is a funny concept, but they don't quite drive it home.
Yeah, not really. It,
This sketch, it should work. It's a funny idea, but it doesn't really work, and I'm at a bit of a loss to figure out why. I don't know
I
if it's they didn't quite get there in the writing, or if it's in the performances, or if it's some combination of the two. I don't
I
know.
think they lean a little too heavy on the Chris's getting drunk and wasted as being
Hmm.
the crux of the comedy. Because we see
Right.
as we see them get drinking more and more shots, they're getting more and more sloppy. At one
Yeah.
point, like Elliot kind of makes out with Farley and
Hmm.
grabs his man boobs and what. Like I think they were hoping that would be more funnier than it actually was, and maybe
Yeah. I think it might have been funnier if they leaned into more of the Bob Newhart being the instigator of the high Bob game. Like he was the one who came up with it, and he was responsible for all this binge drinking over the years.
yeah, right. Because like then Janine comes and kind of scolds him for kind
Right.
of pushing this high bob thing, but then he's like, "No, I have nothing to do with it." And then yeah, like
Yeah.
that kind of kills.
It
Uh,
might be cool if like if he broke down at one point and he gives like this sincere, heartfelt speech, and like we put a spotlight on him, and he's like, "You're right. You're right. I don't know why I did this. I'm responsible for all this teenage alcoholism, or who knows? Maybe they suggested something like that, and Newhart didn't want to do it even as a joke.
right.
I did find just a brief segment of him talking about it on the American Television Institute or Television Academy, something like that.
Oh,
It's like this YouTube channel where they interview all these stars and very comprehensive interviews about their career. And Newhart was talking about that, and he was just like, "Yeah, I didn't know about that. I didn't find out about it until years later. I just hope anybody who was playing it wasn't driving."
mm.
You could tell he was kind of uncomfortable with it.
Yeah, yeah. 'Cause, I mean, you hate to think that you're the cause of just binge drinking and
Yeah,
whatever that could lead to. That's you don't want that to be on your head.
yeah, yeah. So yeah, maybe that's some of Newhart's natural ambivalence coming out in this sketch. I don't know.
Maybe, yeah, but this sketch was like, all right, it's an interesting idea, but doesn't quite get there.
Yeah, it doesn't. Yeah, it plays like a first draft almost. I feel
Yeah,
like with another draft or two, this could have gotten to where to a funnier place.
yeah, it definitely feels underwritten.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
All right.
Uh,
Next up, we have Sports Beat.
yes.
This is we got Kevin Nealon as a host. He's talking to Bob Newhart as announcer Bob Hunda, I believe that's what they said his name was.
Right, right.
And he's a sportscaster, and he's written a book about his career called "I Don't Believe It, Bill: One Man's Battle with Manic Depression." And they keep cutting back to like famous sports plays and it's Bob Newhart giving like sort of high energy commentary on them, as he's a sportscaster calling the plays, and it's really interesting to hear Bob Newhart high energy.
Yeah, you rarely ever hear that.
Yeah,
Yeah. So, but then again, he talks about his manic depression and like
hmm
culminated, uh,
culminated.
culminated at one point where he was announcing the game where Hank Aaron broke out or beat Babe Ruth's all time record. He broke it, and
Yeah, the home run record.
yes,
Yeah,
and he said in a very muted way, "Oh, Hank Aaron broke Babe Ruth's record. I don't believe it, Bill. I don't believe it."
yeah, yeah, and this is after we hear several clips of Newhart just going like, "Oh my God, I don't believe it, Bill," and yeah, and then Hank Aaron comes and he says he got like a lot of letters about that complaining. He says he was accused of racism, but he got positive letters from the Boston area.
That was funny.
That's funny. That's very funny.
I like that.
Um, and yeah, I enjoyed that. That's
Yeah. There was also one moment where, like, when Kevin Nealon is interviewing him, he's like looking off to the side somewhere in his
hmm
depression, and then he
right.
was asking him a question. He's like, Bob, I'm over here." He's like, "What?"
Yeah,
I don't know. There's something a little bit about
yeah.
that.
The implication is that Bob's character is in a depressive cycle as he's making this appearance.
Yes. Yeah, and then they also cut to another clip where he is uh, overexcitedly talking about a game, about the first out in a baseball game. And it's like,
Hmm.
oh, that's the first out of the game. I don't believe. And of course,
Yeah,
getting at the first out in the game isn't that big a deal. So he's
right.
so
And it's also a black player
yes,
too.
exactly.
Yeah.
So
So
they saw the signs, and he was immediately taken to the hospital after that.
right, right. And then they talk about how his book tour has been cut from 37 cities down to 4.
Yikes!
So yeah, he's like it's the book's not doing very well.
It's not selling.
Yeah, this I found interesting mainly just to hear little bits of audio of Bob Newhart getting really excited. If you played those to me cold, I don't know if I would have been able to identify them as Bob Newhart.
Yeah, I don't think so either. Like he doesn't. My Bob Newhart doesn't raise his voice like that. Not my Newhart.
He just sounds very excited. He's not doing the trademark Newhart stammer, which I'm sure was exaggerated somewhat.
Yeah,
So
yeah, I'm sure he played it up.
yeah, so it was very interesting just to hear like Bob Newhart going like, "Oh my God, I don't believe it, Bill." Yeah, something else.
Yeah, I mean, but overall, I thought this sketch was okay. But again, it's another
Hmm.
sketch where I feel like it needed another going over, like a with like a rewrite. Like I feel like it's almost there, but not quite
Darren, the show doesn't go on because it's ready. The show
there.
goes on because it's 11:30.
Yes, Lord.
I mean, I don't want to tell you how to do your job. We can't tailor Saturday Night Live the way we can a podcast where we have the benefit of editing.
Yes, Lord.
Hmm.
But
Just
yeah,
saying, maybe you should think it over before you criticize others like this. There.
you know what? I stand corrected. I stand corrected.
Yeah.
That's me. That's me.
That was still sort of Lorne, even though like I dropped character mid sentence because I'm lazy. Um,
I respect that.
yeah. You respect me dropping character and not maintaining the bit?
Yes, sure do.
Okay. Or you respect me admitting it?
A little from column A, a little from column B.
All right. Okay. All right. So we're gearing towards the end here. We got Deep Thoughts by Jack Handy. What'd you think of this? I didn't really take any notes on this one. It
Uh,
was it was kind of a long Deep Thoughts. It wasn't one I remembered at all.
yeah, this one was a kind of a weird one, but
Yeah.
weird in a good way.
Even by Deep Thought standards, it's a
Yeah,
little weird.
this was an odd one. It was. I mean, I didn't write it down because it was a long one, but it
Yeah.
was basic about his
There were gold nuggets in a volcano. His dad was working in a hardware store.
yeah his grandfather and
Yeah.
but like he worked hard every day and didn't do what everybody else did, which was get gold nuggets from the volcano. And
Right.
then when everybody moved away, he did, and he felt like he did the right thing,
Yeah.
even though he broke his legs and something like that.
I kind of see why this one was at the very end of the show.
Yeah, look, I mean, look,
Yeah.
I love me some good Jack Handy deep thoughts, but this one
Right.
wasn't on the one of the better ones for sure.
It's not up to the usual standard for
Yeah,
deep thoughts.
it
It's
was.
no like I think a cute thing to say when it's raining is to tell a kid that God is crying, and when they ask why he's crying, I say probably because of something you did.
Yeah, see, yeah, exactly. See, that's great.
Yeah,
That's a good one.
not just boom. Yeah,
Bam. That's right. The hell with you, kid.
yeah. This one was just kind of a long meandering-ish story. So
Yeah, exactly. It
I don't
wasn't.
know. I don't know. I'm not sure how deep into the deep thoughts era this was, but I feel like deep thoughts started like late '80s probably, or maybe very early '90s.
Uh, I think so. I definitely remember seeing a ton of them in the 80s, like late 80s for sure.
Yeah,
So
let's
to see
see.
them come around, kind of this late in the game in the mid 90s, I was actually kind of surprised. I was like, oh, they're
Yeah,
still doing deep thoughts at this
let's
time.
see. Okay, we got the Wikipedia article for Mr. Jack Handy. Deep thoughts. Oh, that's right. They were first published in magazine form in Omni and National Lampoon. I'd forgotten that it started as a print thing, and then it was on Michael Nesmith's show Television Parts, and then it went to SNL.
Wow.
Yeah. So then it was between 89 and 90. Deep Thoughts were shown during commercial breaks on the Comedy Channel with Handy's narration. and then it was on SNL between 91 and 98. But it started in Omni magazine in November of '83.
Oh, damn.
So
This
deep thoughts. The
wow.
history of that goes deep.
Damn.
Wow.
That's
Yeah.
that is wild. That is
I
weird.
was forgetting that it started on Michael Nesmith's show
Weird,
for
wild,
television, though.
weird,
That's
wild stuff.
that's something else. Yeah.
All right.
So thank you, Michael Nesmith.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Michael Nesmith.
Thank you, former monkey Michael Nesmith. Or well, no, maybe not former monkey. He was a monkey.
Yeah.
He had rejoined but the monkeys by the time he passed. So
Once you're a monkey, you're always a monkey. That's how I see it.
yeah, it's like the mafia.
Yes. Once you're in, you're in.
Yeah.
And
From your first cigarette to your last dying day.
nice. Yeah, and then we come to the good nights.
Yeah.
Bob Newhart saying goodnight. And then we get this really nice little moment where Norm Macdonald approaches Bob
Yeah.
Newhart as the credits roll with a copy of The Best of Bob Newhart on vinyl and asks Bob to sign it, and he happily does.
He's got like a couple of his albums. I think he had the Button Down Line and Bob Newhart and Best of Bob Newhart. Yeah, it was at least 2 albums, and we see, yeah, Newhart like signing with the Sharpie, it's nice.
Yeah, and you can see like even Farley is right there. It's like that's awesome. Like
Yeah, he's like holding the album, so
yeah,
so Newhart can sign it. It's a nice sweet moment.
it's nice when you can see like cast members genuinely thrilled to be working with like one of the heroes and like genuinely be, like nerding out and doing something that probably either you or I would do. We're like, can you sign this for me, please?
It's nice seeing them nerd out and be fans.
Yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
That's pretty cool.
It's a pretty cool moment.
Mm-hmm.
And another cool moment that happens in the Good Nights is like, so after the credits roll, after the Broadway video logo, after the NBC production logo happens, at the very end of the show,
right,
we get like a post-credits scene here. Which is
not something SNL usually does.
Not really. No, not at all. And so in this scene, we see Bob Newhart in bed, waking up from a nightmare. And he's in bed with his wife, Suzanne Plachette, talking about how he had this terrible, horrible nightmare about hosting SNL. And of course, Suzanne says, "Oh, SNL, that show's still on."
Is that still on?
Yeah. Yes.
And he's like, "Oh yeah, it was a horrible nightmare." So that, of course, is playing off the very last episode of Newhart, his 1980s sitcom, which it ended with like this meta gag of him waking up in bed next to his wife from his first sitcom, The Bob Newhart Show, who was played by Suzanne Plachette.
Right. And I mean, it's in history as books as like one of the best finales in TV history. I'd say.
You know what? Whenever I read that, I just want to say, like, tell me something else about the Newhart finale. Tell me if you genuinely remember the Newhart finale, or do you just remember those last 5 minutes?
That's a good point.
Do you remember what the story was in the Newhart finale?
No. I do not.
So this was like 1991, 92, I think it was.
Right.
Or no, wait. I think it ended in 1990. I had this somewhere. All right, I don't have the Wikipedia page up anymore. Oh yeah, no, okay, it ended in 1990. So the last episode of Newhart, it was the entire town in Vermont where Newhart's Inn was. The entire town was like bought by Japanese businessmen, and then they remake the whole town. Like everybody else in the town sells out. And Bob Newhart's character is like the last voice of sanity.
Okay.
And he refuses to sell out. And then his inn, and then it cuts to like years later. His inn is just in the middle of a golf course. So it's the golfers are constantly hitting golf balls, and the inn has horrible location and all that. And then as he's finally telling off all the people, like people like kind of reunite again after like, I don't know, 5 years after selling it to the Japanese or something like that.
Okay.
And then Dick Loudon, Bob Newhart's character, gets hit in the head with a golf ball, and he loses consciousness. We see him fall down, and then that's when he wakes up on the set of the old Bob Newhart show.
Oh, okay. Interesting. That is pretty cool. All right. I Totally forgot about
Yeah,
that.
see, nobody remembers the the entire story leading up to that. They just remember those last 5 minutes because the last 5 minutes are brilliant.
Yeah.
The before that, it's like, it's all right. They
Yeah.
did some cute bits, but
Yeah, yeah, that's true. Like I did not remember all that other stuff. That sounds like an awesome episode. I'm gonna have to rewatch
it
that.
was it wasn't bad. Yeah, I wonder if you can find that on YouTube or something.
I don't know. Is it streaming anywhere?
That's a good question. I don't know.
Oh,
I don't know if the 1980s Newhart show is streaming somewhere. It should be. It ought to be. I don't know if Bob Newhart show is streaming anywhere.
I'm going to. I'm getting on that right now.
Yeah, let's find this out. Let's find out
Uh,
where people can meet their Newhart needs
okay, here.
in
Newhart,
today's streaming age.
Newhart, 1982, on 8 seasons on Amazon Prime.
Okay, awesome, awesome. Okay, so go over to Amazon Prime and dig yourself some Newhart.
Hmm. Uh,
But skip over the first season. First season's not very good.
oh, okay. All right, good to know.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
No, they changed the cast members a bit, and then they started shooting on film instead of videotape. It's a much better show.
It's almost like
Second season on.
it's like Parks and Recreation, where the first season
Yeah,
is kind of.
kind of. Yeah.
Okay. All right, it's good. And the Bob Newhart show doesn't seem to be streaming anywhere. It's like you can buy it.
Oh, that's a crime. Yeah, because I mean, the whole Newhart ending, it was kind of a meta joke about how his previous sitcom was better regarded, even though Newhart was also a well-regarded sitcom and won Emmys and all that. I think most people were like, "Oh yeah, but his first one was better."
Interesting. Wow.
Yeah.
It's
So.
like Bill Cosby with the Cosby Show, and then he had those other shows like Cosby or whatever that was on CBS. Like that.
Yeah.
All right, fair enough. Fair enough. But yeah, I mean, and that's the episode. As far as the episode he hosted, I thought it was okay. Like, I mean, from what I remember from the other episodes that happened in that season, season 20, this was definitely one of the better ones. And
Yeah. I remembered very little of this. I mean, I don't know if I actually saw this episode back in the day. I was in art school at the time, so I might have missed it. I don't know if I was watching SNL every single week at this point.
yeah, I think I feel like I was, but like I might have skipped a few because even I knew season 20 was a bit of a stinkeroo. So there
Yeah.
might have been one or two like either I didn't watch or I did watch and I just chose to omit it from my memory.
Yeah.
So overall, not a bad episode. I mean, Bob Newhart does what he does. Some of his energy sort of fits some of the sketches, and not quite some others. But
hmm
for the most part, it's pretty enjoyable, I'd say.
I thought it was okay. I wouldn't say it was great. Yeah, it didn't really rise above the level of okay for me, just because I think Newhart's energy is such a different energy than
Yeah,
SNL
yeah,
typically. So,
no, fair enough.
and he has such a specific comedic voice.
Yes,
It was kind of tough to adapt what he does to SNL, or for SNL to adapt to what he does.
yeah,
I don't,
no,
whichever, however you want to phrase it.
right, no, fair enough, fair enough. And we also, we can reach out on the Twitter. We told
Hmm.
our Twitter folks about that we were
Yeah,
doing this episode to see if they had anything to say. Drew S. Rod at DSIE78 said, literally one of the only bright spots in one of the worst seasons in SNL history. He also said Norm looked like a little kid in The Good Night while Bob was autographing his album. So endearing. And
yeah.
Techie at Uncle Scrooge DCK says he's no Krusty the Clown, and that's a good thing.
Yeah, that's of course referencing the episode of The Simpsons that Bob Newhart was on, which was like I think when they did the big Krusty tribute,
Yes.
and they brought Bob Newhart in, and he was not expecting to speak about Krusty, and he just sort of stammers his way through an impromptu tribute, and it was very funny. Haven't seen that in years, still remembered very well.
Very well.
Yeah,
Yeah, so that was the SNL episode. But then you mentioned before we hopped on here of a small documentary that actually I also was going to bring up that I
yeah.
kind of stumbled upon during one of my YouTube searches.
Yes. This is a documentary by Judd Apatow called "Bob and Don: A Love Story." It is on YouTube. It's on the New Yorker's YouTube channel. Just 20 minutes about the lifelong friendship between Bob Newhart and Don Rickles.
Yeah, this came out after Don Rickles passed away, so it's a
Hmm.
couple years old, and yeah, and it's just Judd Apatow interviewing Bob Newhart about their friendship because yeah, the two of which I don't think I even knew, or maybe I forgot about, but the two of them were best friends for like decades. Them and their wives were like
Yeah,
thick as thieves, as they say.
yeah, yeah. And I remember Rickles actually once guest starring on an episode of Newhart, and it was a very funny episode, as I recall.
Yeah,
Um,
and I mean, a lot of people wouldn't think that would work because their comedic styles are so different. I think even
mhm.
there's a clip that they put in where Rickles was on Conan, and
Yes,
Conan asked him about, it's like, yeah, the two of you are so different. And then Don says, yeah, Bob is more of a brainy comedian, and I'm the type of comedian that gets laughs.
yes,
Zing!
yeah. I mean, Rickles, what a roaster! He was awesome.
Yeah, and
Yeah, so I mean, it's a just a short 20-minute thing. Yeah, I know. A short movie from Judd Apatow? Does such a thing exist?
this is
I mean, I'm like, this is the Apatow thing that should be like 40 minutes too long. I
yes,
mean,
absolutely.
I could have watched an hour of this, but no, it's only like 20 minutes.
It's
So,
really quick. It has one of my favorite Bob Newhart jokes in it too.
oh yeah, what's
It's
that?
when they cut to a part where they cut to the roast of Don Rickles, like that happened back in the '70s, and Bob Newhart was one of the roasters. I think Dean Martin
Right.
was the MC of it,
Uh
and
huh.
Bob Newhart has his joke where he talks about how his best friend Don Rickles, hasn't had very much hadn't had very much luck in the world of television. He's had 4 TV shows, all gone, and the last one got a -4 in the Nielsen ratings. Um, so that said that no one was watching, and several people without TV sets had heard about the show and said that even if they had a TV set, they wouldn't have watched either. I like that joke.
Yeah.
I think that's a pretty
Yeah.
damn good joke.
Yeah. That's very New Hardy. Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, like so even though the comedic styles of these two greats were different, they really go into how they had the same values. Like they were both really loyal and loved their wives. They were both big into family. They loved their kids, and like
Hmm.
all of them actually like did a lot of traveling together. Like they showed like all these video footage of them traveling to like Thailand and Germany as a family. Like these
Right.
two
Right.
families were like super close.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's very endearing. It's very sweet.
Yeah, it's very cool. I enjoyed watching it and getting a little insight into them, and
Yeah,
yeah, Judd Apatow obviously has like a real affection for them, and it's nice that there's a little of this on record.
yeah,
And they even talked to some of the kids because the families were very close.
yeah.
And
I like that little anecdote they had where Don Rickles' daughter talks about how everybody thinks my dad was this big, boorish lout, but he was actually like a really sweet guy, and he was actually him and my mom were like kind of prudes. She talks about how one time Don Rickles and his wife went to this one party at somebody's house, and then he found out it was like a key party, like a swingers party, and
mhm.
they left immediately. They didn't because they didn't want anything to do with it. Like it was like wow, '70s were wild, man. '70s were wild.
I would 100% watch a movie about Don Rickles at a tea party. I'm just like, let's green light that right now,
Hello, dummy.
right now.
Hello, dummy.
Just like the ice storm with Don Rickles.
Oh,
Let's see that.
now you. Oh, let's talk casting. Now you're talking.
Yeah. Uh,
Yeah, and so, but it's this. Of course, this happened a couple of years after Don Rickles' passing, so it
right.
ends on a very kind of sweet note, like focusing on Don. But
Yeah.
it shows how the two families had a lot of affection for each other. I liked how,
Hmm.
like, towards the end of Don's life, Bob Newhart and his family moved like down the block from Don's
Yeah, they're
house.
like a block and a half away, and then and sadly he recalls that Rickles got sick not long after
Yeah,
that
I,
and passed.
yeah.
Uh,
Bob Newhart says, yeah, their house is like right down the block. It's not quite as big as ours, but it's right.
yeah, yeah. That's how you can tell they're really close friends. Is really close friends. They bust each other's chops, like
Yeah,
especially if you're comedians.
yeah. Even at the very
That's how they show love.
yeah, even at the beginning of this documentary, Bob Newhart
Mhm.
shows a that welcome mat that Don
Yeah.
got them, and it says the Newharts, best friends of the Rickles.
Yes. Yeah. It's funny stuff.
Good stuff. Check it out. It's on YouTube. It's free. It's there. It's if you're a comedy nerd, I highly recommend you check it out.
Yeah. If you haven't seen it already, check it out. And yeah, it is the one Judd Apatow movie that I wish was longer.
Yes, absolutely. This
Yeah.
is it. This is the one.
This is the one. This is the one.
Yes, and
If I could like take 20 minutes out of any other Judd Apatow movie and add it onto this one, I would do that in a heartbeat.
indeed, here,
Yeah.
here. And that's the episode, guys. Thanks again for listening to the podcast. As always, you can
Mhm.
follow us on Twitter because we refuse to call it X at SNL Nerds Show, and you can follow me, myself, and I on all the social media platforms at Darren Credible. That's DARIN Credible.
Yeah, and you can also follow me on Twitter and Instagram and Blue Sky and a couple other places I'm probably forgetting about at Trumbull Comic, TRUMBULL, and the word comic. And
And
we are on YouTube.
woo!
You can see a lot of or listen to a lot of our older episodes and our recent episodes on YouTube. If you just do a search on YouTube for SNL Nerds Podcast, that'll take you over to the non-productive page, and you can hear over 100 of our episodes.
Oh my
on there.
God!
So yeah, check it out.
Just hours and hours of our ramblings and meanderings in your
Well, and if you like what you hear, it's a great way to share the podcast with friends. They might not be podcast people, but most everybody's on YouTube now. So
that's where all the cool kids are.
Share that around. Make fun clips, make animations. What the hey?
Yeah, we give you full permission. Go nuts. Go wild.
Yes, that would be fun.
Absolutely.
That would be fun to see what people might do with that.
Don't do anything too weird.
Yeah. But please like, comment, share that around. Yeah, we love to see what people think about the podcast. We'd love to see people share the podcast around, and we're very excited about being on YouTube now at long last.
Yes,
we've been working on that for a little while, and it's finally happening. And every new episode of the podcast should be going up on YouTube from now on.
Yeah, so give it a follow, give it a subscribe, smash that like button, as they say. And well, just check us out there.
The name of the channel is Non-Productive.com. But like I said, just search for SNL Nerds Podcast, and you can find us. And there's a whole playlist of the podcast. Check us out.
A plethora of playlists, as they say.
Yeah, so it's most everything going back for last couple of years of the podcast. Woo! So yeah, all the way back to let's see, episode 182. So over 100 episodes.
Love it
on there. So yeah. So check it out. I think that's about it for this week.
I think you're right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're just gonna peter out now, I guess.
No, you're supposed to say your thing. Your thing you say.
Well, I do that after we tease what we're doing next week, and we're not ready to announce what we're doing next week yet.
Oh, that's right.
It's still a little up in the air. So I'm at a bit of a loss, Darren Patterson.
Well, John,
I don't know what to do. How do I transition out of this?
I don't know, John Trumbull. You could just go ahead and say, but until then.
Yeah, but I need something to lead into the but until then.
What?
I mean, am I what am I just going to say? But until then, apropos of nothing. I mean, maybe that's how you would do it, sir. But
you know what? I didn't mean to correct you. You're the professional. But maybe what we're doing now can be the lead-in, like a meta thing. Like what we're talking about now can be the lead-in to you saying, but until then, nerds out.
So, we don't have an ending for the podcast this week, but we probably will next week. So, until then, nerds out.
This has been a non-productive media presentation. Executive producer Frank Hablawi. This program and many others like it on the Non-Productive Network is distributed under a Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial No Derivatives license. Please share it, but ask before trying to change it or sell it. For more information, visit non-productive.com.